Hello, everyone. I'm Riccardo Rossi, and I'm here with Federico Marini, as always, for these e-Rum profiles. Our guest today is Jared Lander. Jared Lander is Chief Data Scientist at Lander Analytics at New York-based data science firm, is adjunct professor of Columbia Business School, and of course is very active in the R community, and he's the organizer of the New York Open Statistical Programming Meetup, the New York R Conference, and is also the author of R for Everyone. And of course, he's one of the e-Rum 2020 keynote speakers. Welcome, Jared.
Hi, it's very great to be speaking with you.
Okay, great. It's our pleasure. So tell us something about you, about your R experience, how and when you did get started with R. Was it love at first sight?
Oh, love at first sight. It wasn't quite. It was love very quickly. But at first, so my first experience with it, I was in graduate school, starting back in 2007. And my second class was linear regression. And we're starting to do the homework, and they said, do your homework in R. So of course, I was like, psh, I'll do it in Excel, get it done nice and quickly. I admit I had that thought at first. And that worked out great. The first homework was about simple linear regression, but it worked. We got to the second homework, which was multiple regression. And at the time, Excel couldn't do multiple regression, so had to use R. And I haven't put it down since.
Okay. And that was when?
2007.
Okay. So the 13th year.
Yes. It's been quite a long time of me using R.
Okay. I don't know the correspondence of what the 13th year is in the marriage years. I'm in my 10th.
Okay. I wish I knew what the 10th year was. I should look up what that gift is.
Yeah, we should check Wikipedia later. Okay. And so you said you basically had it in for your courses, and then how did your career develop after that?
So after the linear regression course, a bunch of the courses required us to do programming, and we're talking sample surveys class, non-parametric statistics, we're talking the data mining class. So I had a couple of years where I could start learning R and poking my way around. And of course, it was like stumbling through the darkness at first. I didn't even know how to read data into R. So we had our homework, and I had to enter it in one row at a time by hand. It was brutal. I didn't know about strings as factors equals false. I didn't know about drop equals true. None of this was taught to me. So I finished my graduate school, and I'm sort of kicking around doing things, freelancing here and there. And my friend read Andrew Gellman's blog, who said there was an R meetup that night. So he said, let's go. And I went to the R meetup, which at the time was organized by Josh Reich and Drew Conway, and I fell in love. And over the course of the next 6 months, I really accelerated my R learning. That is really how I got better and better at R, was by going to these monthly meetups and learning from these other people there who are doing these cool things. That's where I learned that head function. I never even saw the head function until I went to the meetup. Yeah. And I learned so much out of this, and it just accelerated from there. After going to the meetup for a few months, I happened to get my first big freelancing gig. A former professor of mine who was at the nursing school at Columbia sent me to Myanmar to go analyze a survey of a disaster region. I get there, the previous statistician, who I've become actually good friends with now, he was using Stata. And I had to translate all his code. I didn't know how to use Stata. I didn't know how to use R. I sat there for 3 weeks translating his code into R. And that really even further accelerated my R skills. By the time I came back, started going back to the meetup again, I was like really revving to go in R.
Okay. So you basically, correct me if I'm wrong, you couldn't do your job properly if it wasn't because of, thanks to R.
Yes, R made everything possible. If it wasn't for R, I don't know how I would have done any of my work. And this was very early on in my career too. And even back then, R became such a tool for mine that now everything's in R.
And I would say you're giving back to the community quite a lot, actually, to the R community. I mean, so how did the New York City R user group get started? I mean, it's interesting because I've seen that it's a pretty big group. So, and how this began, and do you have an advice to give to someone that wants to start something similar?
So it started back in April of 2009, founded by John.
2009.
And it's been a long time. And the first meeting, there were 26 people.
Wow.
Did all conference room. I discovered it, I believe, in the 4th or 5th month it existed, and there was maybe 40 people in a room. At the time, it was at NYU. And at this point, Drew Conway had really taken over and was running it for Josh. Josh was still involved, but Drew was really managing most of the stuff. And we just kept growing and growing. We ended up going to Columbia for a little bit of time in what's called the Playroom. And I think the key early on was having a different speaker each month, which can be hard if you're starting off and you have the organizer speaking repeatedly because that's who's in the area. Luckily, we were in New York, so we had a big pool to draw from. And we had a really nice crystallizing moment. We were all standing around talking to each other, remarking how Stack Overflow, which was fairly new at the time, was so nice and friendly. And we were all talking to each other, and we're like, oh, it's because we're all answering each other's questions. We all know each other. We're the ones at Stack Overflow. Things have changed on Stack Overflow, the Meetup, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. And about 2 years later, we were holding our meetups at AOL down on Broadway in Lower Manhattan, and we had about 1,800 members. At that point, Drew was finishing his PhD, starting a job, got married, and he couldn't do it anymore. So he asked me, and I'm not sure a lot of people know this, he asked me and Wes McKinney to take over running the Meetup. Because at that point, it was rebranded the Open Statistical Programming Meetup, so it could be R and Friends. So while it's mostly focused on R, there's also Python and Julia, Go, SQL, whatever open source language is available. So Wes and I managed it together for a little bit, and he's still technically my co-organizer because I love Wes. He moved to California twice since then. He's moved to Nashville. I still have him around. And we built up this meetup, and now we have over 11,000 members. And
11,000 members. Wow. I read somewhere that, the New York Open Statistical Programming Meetup is the world's biggest meetup about R.
Yes.
Is it true? Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. And we work really hard to keep that going. And so now, since it is New York, so we have people passing through from all around the world. We film all the meetups. We put them online. We have about probably 5 to 6 years worth of video. And we built a website using R to house about 10 years of presentations. We do workshops. We have the conference that grew out of it to try to make this accessible to everyone around the world who wants to learn from this, because we're in such a fortunate position that since it's New York, everyone passes through and we get these amazing speakers that you might not have access to in other places.
That's true. I think, for example, so for when you have to start, actually the beginning is that more like finding the critical mass of interesting user and speakers, that it doesn't have to be a one-man job, and of course it's so the more colorful it is, the merrier, because otherwise it's more like it doesn't have to become yet another work thing. And so you want to listen also somehow to the more leisure themes and topics, and just hear out what people do with this language, that it's not just for work. Yeah,
it's for fun.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is about the people. That's a large part of the community. I had Jennifer Hill spoke at both the meetup and our conference within a few months of each other. And she said to me that we managed to get in the room a really good group of people who are both incredibly smart, but really nice and humble. And that combination makes it such a great experience. Now, I find that's true about the R community in general. For the most part, it's a really great community of good people who just want to have fun talking about one of their favorite tools and do interesting things and share that with other people and get excited. So even if you're starting out just a group of 20 people, if everyone's into what they're doing and they feel comfortable to share and just sort of hang out and get to know you, that's how it blossoms.
Yeah. It's probably just the key at the beginning is probably just to keep on doing it, even if you don't have a direct return of what you're doing, because it's a time investment and so on. But I think it's in the long run, it's an experience worth doing.
I've been told consistency is so important. We have had people coming to ours for years, and they say how we keep hitting it every month, and we keep putting another talk and making this thing happen. And that's really important to get an event that people look forward to coming to, that they know is going to be there for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really do believe that, and this value of community. And I see that you're also a tour guide for Scott's Pizza. And I mean, I'm a pizza lover, of course, but I think that, I believe that these actually helped and trigger and facilitate also scientific exchange, because in my experience, also, out of the office or experience like this community easy experience are something that usually triggers the good connection between, as you mentioned, prepared and humble people. And so sometimes the best ideas, sprouts under a pizza, maybe. I don't know, your experience.
And that's so important to us. So the way our meetups work is the first 30 to 45 minutes is pizza and hanging out, just hanging out with each other. I don't want to call it networking because that sounds so much like you have a goal. This is just hanging out, developing relationships.
Yeah.
There's an hour-long talk, and then we go to the bar. Whether you drink alcohol or not, you come to the bar and you sort of hang out and talk with your friends. So you've got this nugget of knowledge in the middle, bookended by hanging out with people and talking and sharing ideas and bonding with them. And that is such part of the experience that's almost central. Now that we're doing our meetups virtual, I always start with, I get pizza delivered to my house and show it to everybody because like, hey, I want this to be part of the fun experiment.
Yeah.
And do you think that this easier going way of doing maybe is due to having also an academic appointment? So is the academic world more, I would say, ready to such an approach than compared to the business world?
Interesting. I think depending on the industry, there's varying degrees of openness. And if you're coming to this meetup, people are going to want to learn. So whether they're coming from the university or they're coming from their corporate tower in Midtown, they're coming to this meetup for a reason. Business people come to the meetup also have a pretty good will to do that as well.
Good. Good to know. That's fine. I like it.
Talking about the mixing and mingling of business and academia. So you probably are a very, very good person entitled to have that as a topic to talk about. What can you share about your experience? So how do you manage your dual aspect of working, being chief data scientist at your company and as well adjunct professor?
I really love it. I've always loved school, and maybe not always. Maybe there's a few rough spots in high school and middle school where school isn't as much fun, but you get to sit around and learn. And now as a professor, I get to both learn but also teach. And I have a room full of people who listen to me talk about R. How much more fun can that be for me? And yeah, you can imagine how great that is.
Pay for that. So
yeah, exactly. They're paying to be there to listen to me talk about R. How much fun is that? And it's really great because it keeps me fresh, because I need to keep on top of my game in R, because my students, they're getting better and better every year. They're getting more exposed to it. I need to be able to know what they need to learn and how to answer their questions. And that helps my job because I'm constantly having to keep on top of not just R, but data science and statistics and the math behind it. It really helps me in my job. And another great benefit has been that a lot of the people who do work for me now were my former students. And so it's a great way of not only seeing how good they are, but instilling the way I like to work in them. Now they come do work for me, and I get to help employ them, and it's amazing.
that would have been my next question. So how good is your fishing pool to grab excellent candidates once you know that they are out and done, and then they're kind of mature enough to work with you? So
I love nothing more than helping my students get a job. And if that's doing work with me, even better. And every semester you get a bunch of people who want to come in there and learn. And if I can help them work anywhere or with me, it's a great feeling. It's a really great talent pool.
On another note, I would ask you your 3 R items you would bring with you on a deserted island, either packages or settings or whatever. or any dream setup, or even any rant? Any rant, sorry.
Okay. Well, first, I'm not sure if this counts. I need RStudio. I almost couldn't do my job without RStudio. Sure, there are other IDEs, but they're not nearly as polished and great as RStudio. So that's number one. That just takes up a whole slot right there. The next item I bring with me has to be dplyr, because I use that for all my data manipulation. It's probably the same answer you're getting from everybody. And for my third, I'm going to take Glimnet. That is the ElastiNet is my favorite algorithm, and Glimnet is a fast implementation of it, and it's just a nice starting point. If I'm going to have to do a supervised learning, I start with Glimnet and then build from there. And it's a great tool.
I usually like to hear opinion on the artificial intelligence, and especially now. I mean, in your case, artificial intelligence in data-driven business. So, how much is this a buzzword, or is it a buzzword, or is something that has always been done? This is the first question. And which role does R have in defining a specific artificial intelligence path? So artificial intelligence in general, and then specifically to R.
I gave a keynote last year in Scotland where I talked about the disambiguation between data science, statistics, and artificial intelligence.
Exactly.
I like to be snarky in some of my talks, and I had a great slide, what is artificial intelligence? And it had an if-else statement on it. So much of what's called artificial intelligence is simple regressions, maybe rules-based methods, and were the rules even devised by an algorithm, or were they human-based rules? I think artificial intelligence is an excellent buzzword that has encompassed now a lot of what we used to call statistics or machine learning or even data science. And while artificial intelligence is a buzzword, it can mean things like when someone says we use artificial intelligence, they could mean we're using a regression. And hey, using a regression is great, but they call it artificial intelligence so more people pay attention.
Or you can apply for money grants,
or just charge more because it's artificial intelligence.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yep. And so whether it's a buzzword or not, people are doing real things, even if they're just calling it artificial intelligence, which has its own implications. I went to a few meetings on Capitol Hill talking about regulating artificial intelligence, and heard a great line from another person there. And they said that no one wanted to regulate it when you called it logistic regression. You call it artificial intelligence and people get scared all of a sudden. But definitely has drawbacks as well.
So different nuances according to the audience, let's say.
Yes.
In this way. So next June we will gather online virtually again, and we will have you as a keynote speaker. Do you have in mind something, at least in the ballpark, something that you want to anticipate us?
It's going to have a lot of R, obviously, because this is the R conference.
Of course.
And something fun about R. It's going to be something not in a general purpose. Like we're not going to be looking at boosted trees or penalized regression. It's going to be something more encompassing and fun for the audience. I always believe that you should be having fun while you're using R. And it's going to be something that takes that as a higher level picture.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, Federico, do you have any other questions maybe in mind? Something?
I do. In my work, basically, we also have a lot of cooperation partners. So, and they come to us many times already with the data, with sequencing data. So I work in a core facility for bioinformatics as well. And basically, I was just wondering, what does your typical customer do when you do consultancy? What's the spectrum of the applications, and does the first meeting happen, for example?
So our consulting business takes on a few different types of engagements. The first and easiest is corporate training, where people want to learn how to use these tools, and we go and do a classroom style teaching for a week or so. Maybe it's ongoing. So that's one engagement. That doesn't involve us doing any analysis, but that's a very common thing people want. When it actually comes to more consulting style engagements, we have a few different types. Some of them are advisory, where we help the company determine the best setup for reproducibility or what tools they should be using. Should they be using this database or this environment? Should they be using a GPU or CPU? And when it's those type of cases, we go there, we talk to the people. What are they trying to do? What are they trying to solve? Then we build recommendations. Other engagements, we're building dashboards. We're building a shiny dashboard for them. So you got to go find out what they're looking for, find out the data sources. What I think you're really looking for is when we're doing analysis, we're actually getting in there, we're doing some coding. And even then, there's a few different types. On one hand, we could just be doing an analysis, like a white paper. We're coming in, we're doing an old-fashioned statistical analysis. Maybe we have modern tools. It might be with a penalized regression or a boosted tree, but we're doing a one-off analysis. Other times, we're building an algorithm that's in place, and it continuously runs. It rebuilds on a daily basis, a weekly, a monthly, whatever the cadence is, and then it's making predictions every hour, every day, depending what they need. So to do that engagement, we really need to go in there and talk to the team, figure out where is their data? Is it spread out across multiple sources? Is it all in one place? What do the data fields mean? What do the rows mean? Are the rows observations? Or are they parts of observations? We really need to understand the business process and what the data shows of the business process. Then we've got to find out, what are they trying to solve? What are they trying to answer? So again, it's more talking to them and figuring out what do they need done. It's only at that point that we start exploring the data. We might start with some visualizations, some summary statistics, and build our way up into fitting a model. Usually it's some sort of supervised model, predictive model, and that's when we really get into it. Then we start dealing with the coding and the data manipulation, the model fitting, the model validation, and then exposing the model into production. So it's a really long process, but a lot of it is that human touch of getting to know what needs to be done to solve their problem.
Excellent. I mean, I like to think that R, especially then you mentioned Shiny and web applications, these are amazing and efficient, very efficient ways to communicate and to bring, say, two very different types of experts, so the analyst and the bench biologist, to bring them to a common ground and then try to accelerate the time to insight cycle, because the data might be very, very nice and super fine and perfectly analyzed. Still, if you do not give them the tools to actually extract knowledge out of it, or to make these processes actually easy and straightforward, then say someone is at the losing end, and most of the time it's both. And to find this kind of common ground is a key aspect, and that's a recurrent topic in our interviews. So this data literacy, and I think it has a huge amount of value for, say, your career and for developing also as a more aware citizen in the future years to come. What's your take on that?
It's incredibly important, as you say. The ability to communicate what you're doing helps so much. One of my favorite stories is I was working for an American football team, helping them draft new players. And I built, along with someone on the team, this complex methodology that used 100 different models for each position. And it got really complex, really deep. And I was presenting this to the team and all the scouts. And one of the scouts was a former player, former linebacker on the defense. And he was not happy having this nerd come in there and using numbers and algorithms to help him do his job. But then I was showing the presentation, one of the charts I showed was a variable importance plot, which just showed the variables on the y-axis and how important they were on the x-axis. And I see his face light up. He's like, oh, now I get exactly what you're doing. And just through this explanation, and everyone takes a different explanation. Other people like coefficient plots, other people like variable importance plots, everyone likes something different. He saw this and it completely changed his perspective on both me and what I was doing.
He saw the light.
Yeah, he really did. And after the talk, he comes up with a big smile, shakes my hand, tells me how great that was.
It's a great
broke your bones on the hand because of the cake.
But he just saw it. Now it made sense then, and it clicked. So it's all about finding ways to communicate with different people, because everyone has a different style of understanding. So it's our job to make it applicable to the person we're talking to.
That you can follow Jared on Twitter also is @JaredLander, and also remind that it's also his book R for Everyone, and maybe you want to say something about the book, is because I've seen it, it's a pretty huge one. I mean, there's a lot in there. It's,
as the name implies, it's really meant to be for everyone.
Is it really for everyone? So R is actually can be for everyone?
I thoroughly believe it can be. It touches so many points of life. There's so many things you can do with R. I gave a talk at my conference called R for Everything.
Everything, yeah.
I did everything in this talk. Downloaded data, deleted files, sent emails, checked into Git. I did everything that you would do in a normal process using R. And so the goal of the book was for someone starting at zero to ramp up and get proficient. And if you're not starting at zero, you start somewhere in the middle. That's why the book, one of the first chapters is how to download and install R, because that's a big hurdle for so many people just getting set up. It then walks through variables, reading data, plotting, data manipulation, gets into modeling, linear regression, GLMs, time series, Bayesian methods. It gets into C++, package building, Shiny, Markdown. There's the whole spectrum of what you want. And I really formulated it to be the way I wish I had learned in grad school to get me going. If I had learned about strings as factors equals false, my life would have been so much better. So I really try to make that progression from zero into proficiency.
Okay, great. I like it. Time zero toward proficiency. Great. Okay, Jared. Thank you for chatting with us, and we are really happy that we will be back with you during the e-Rum 2020 conference next June. So thank you for your words, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I had a pleasure, and I really look forward to the conference. It's going to be really exciting.
Great. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.